It was a crisp October evening when Ralph first laid eyes on Brittany. He was at a crowded book launch, nursing a glass of red wine, when he saw her laughing across the room. Her laughter was infectious, and he found himself drawn to her like a moth to a flame. "Hey, I'm Ralph," he said, extending a hand as he approached her during a quieter moment. "I couldn't help but overhear you talking about the latest tech trends. Sounds like you really know your stuff." Brittany smiled, shaking his hand. "I'm Brittany. And yeah, I guess I'm a bit of a tech geek. I work in the industry, so I have to keep up." Their conversation flowed effortlessly. They talked about everything from their favorite books to their dreams of traveling the world. As the evening wore on, Ralph found himself hoping it wouldn't end. The weeks turned into months, and their casual dates became serious commitments. They moved in together, decorating their small apartment with a mix of Brittany's sleek modern taste and Ralph's more eclectic style. One lazy Sunday morning, lying in bed with the sunlight spilling across the duvet, Brittany mused aloud, "You know, Ralph, I've never been happier than I am with you. But I don't think I ever want to get married again." Ralph, surprised, propped himself up on one elbow to look at her. "Really? Why's that?" Brittany sighed, turning to face him. "My marriage with Philip was a disaster. It ended so badly. I think a legal tie just complicates things. I don't want to risk this what we have." Ralph took a moment to digest this. "I get that. I love you, Britt, and if that's how you feel, I'm okay with it. We'll do it your way." As years passed, their connection only deepened, but Brittany's career took off in ways neither of them had anticipated. She was promoted to director at her tech company and eventually left to start her own venture. Ralph supported her every step of the way, although his own career as an engineer was fraught with instability and layoffs. One evening, after a particularly rough day of job hunting, Ralph came home to find Brittany at the kitchen table, surrounded by paperwork. "Hey, love," Brittany looked up, her eyes tired but smiling. "How was your day?" Ralph shrugged, trying to keep his tone light. "Same old, really. No luck on the job front. But tell me about you. Looks like you're conquering the world from our kitchen." Brittany laughed, the sound still as beautiful as that first night. "Feels more like the world's trying to conquer me today. But hey, I've got something to tell you." Ralph leaned against the counter, watching her with interest. "I'm pregnant, Ralph." The words hung in the air between them, a mix of disbelief and joy on Ralph's face. "Really? We're going to have a baby." Brittany nodded, her smile widening. "Yes, we are." That night, they talked late into the hours, planning, worrying, and dreaming about their future. Despite the joy, Brittany's fear of losing her career momentum lurked in the back of her mind, but with Ralph by her side, she felt they could handle anything. Together, they built their lives on a foundation of love, not realizing that, like sand, it could shift unexpectedly beneath them. Brittany's career took a meteoric rise just as Ralph seemed to sputter and stall. While he faced another frustrating day of job rejections, Brittany would come home with exciting news of promotions or successful project launches. Their evenings often found them in their cozy living room, Brittany with her laptop open, animatedly sharing her day. One such evening, Brittany looked particularly excited. "Hey, guess what? They offered me the director position." Ralph looked up from his stack of job applications, his face breaking into a smile. "That's fantastic, Britt. I knew you'd get it." Brittany beamed, sinking down next to him on the couch. "It's all happening so fast, Ralph. I mean, it's amazing, but it's a lot. I'm going to have even more responsibilities now." "Hey, you can handle it," Ralph encouraged, putting an arm around her. "You're the most capable person I know, but what does this mean for us?" "Well, more hours, probably. And travel. I might need to go to the West Coast every few months," she admitted, her excitement dimming slightly with the realization. Ralph nodded, trying to mask his concern. "We'll make it work. We always do." As Brittany's influence in the tech world grew, she often found herself in high-stakes meetings, negotiating deals, and leading teams. Ralph attended more interviews than he cared to count, but nothing seemed to stick. He started to feel like he was living in Brittany's shadow, though he never expressed these thoughts to her, fearing it might burden her. One evening, after a particularly tough negotiation, Brittany came home exhausted but triumphant. "I secured the deal with the German investors," she announced, collapsing onto the sofa. "That's amazing," Ralph said, handing her a glass of wine. "You're incredible, you know that." Brittany sighed, sipping her wine. "I just wish you were finding something stable too. It's not fair, you always supporting me and—" Ralph cut her off with a gentle smile. "Hey, we're a team, right? Your wins are my wins. Besides, I've got some potential freelance stuff lined up. It's not much, but it's something." Brittany leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Ralph. I just wish I could do more to help." "You help by being you, Britt. We'll get through this rough patch, we always do." Their life continued this way, with Brittany's career shining brightly and Ralph doing his best to find his footing. Despite the disparities in their professional lives, their relationship remained strong, built on mutual respect and understanding. But underneath the surface, the seeds of insecurity and unspoken fears were slowly taking root, threatening to disturb the harmony they had worked so hard to maintain. The news of Brittany's pregnancy marked a new chapter in their lives. It was unexpected but warmly welcomed. They sat together on their back porch, wrapped in blankets against the evening chill, discussing their future. "I can't believe we're going to be parents," Brittany said, her voice a mix of excitement and nerves. Ralph squeezed her hand. "It's going to be amazing. Scary, but amazing." Brittany turned to look at him, her eyes serious. "I'm worried, though, about my job. You know how much time it demands, and with the baby." "We'll figure it out, Britt. We always do," Ralph reassured her, though he shared her concerns about how they would manage everything. As the pregnancy progressed, Brittany's worries about work intensified. She was up for another big promotion, this time to a VP role, which would require even more of her time and energy. Ralph noticed the stress it was causing her and made a decision that he hoped would ease her burden. One evening, as they were cleaning up after dinner, Ralph broached the subject. "Brittany, I've been thinking a lot about this baby and our careers." Brittany dried off a plate, looking curious. "Yeah? What about it?" "What if I took some time off work? Became a stay-at-home dad for a while," Ralph suggested, watching her reaction closely. Brittany paused, the plate in her hand. "Really? Are you sure? I mean, I love that idea, but I don't want you to feel like you're giving up anything." Ralph smiled, setting down the towel. "I'm sure. It makes sense. Your job is skyrocketing and mine is. Well, it's not. This could be good for us, good for the baby. I can focus on freelancing in my own time too." The relief in Brittany's eyes was immediate. "That would be incredible. But only if you're sure. I don't want you to have any regrets." "No regrets," Ralph assured her. "This is for our family. It's right for now." With Ralph's decision to stay home, Brittany felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She was able to pursue her VP role with full force, knowing that Ralph would be there to take care of their child. This new arrangement brought them closer, as they prepared the nursery together, choosing colours and themes, all the while discussing how they would balance this new life. The day they brought their newborn son, Willie, home was a joyful one. Ralph was a natural with the baby, and Brittany felt an immense gratitude for his support and sacrifice. That night, as they watched Willie sleeping in his crib, Brittany whispered, "Thank you for doing this, Ralph. I couldn't do this without you." Ralph wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "We're doing this together. It's going to be an adventure, isn't it?" "Definitely the best kind," Brittany agreed, resting her head on his shoulder. Together, they looked forward to the future, uncertain but hopeful, ready to face whatever challenges came next. The arrival of Willie marked a joyous milestone in Ralph and Brittany's lives. After hours of labour, the sound of their son's first cries echoed through the delivery room, signalling the beginning of a new chapter for the little family. "He's perfect, Brittany." "Just perfect," Ralph murmured, his eyes misty as he watched the nurses wrap Willie in a soft blue blanket. Brittany, exhausted but beaming, reached out her arms. "Let me see him. Let me hold our baby boy." As Ralph gently handed Willie to Brittany, their eyes met over the top of their son's head, sharing a moment of pure love and triumph. "We did good, didn't we?" Ralph said softly. "We did amazing," Brittany replied, her voice thick with emotion as she kissed Willie's forehead. The first few weeks at home were a blur of sleepless nights and endless diapers, but Ralph took to fatherhood with an earnest dedication that surprised even himself. He was the one who got up at night to feed Willie, allowing Brittany to get enough rest to face her demanding job each morning. One such night, as Ralph gently rocked Willie back to sleep, he spoke softly to the baby. "You know, little man, your mum is a superhero. She's out there making the world better for us, and I'm here to make sure you're happy and healthy. We're a team, you and I." Days turned into weeks, and Ralph settled into his new role with a rhythm that felt natural and right. He managed to squeeze in freelance work during Willie's naps, but his son was his main focus. During one particularly challenging afternoon, when Willie just wouldn't stop crying, Brittany came home to find Ralph walking back and forth across the living room, gently bouncing the baby. "Hey, how's the best dad in the world doing?" she joked, dropping her bag and going over to take Willie into her arms. Ralph gave a tired smile. "I might trade that title for a nap right about now. He's been fussy all day." Brittany looked down at Willie, who began to calm in her arms. "You're doing an amazing job, Ralph. I don't say it enough." "It's worth it," Ralph said, watching her with a mixture of admiration and love. "Seeing you both like this, it's all worth it." As weeks turned into months, Ralph and Brittany found their balance. Brittany's career continued to thrive with Ralph's support, and Ralph found fulfillment in his new role at home. They often spent evenings together after Willie had gone to bed, talking about their days and making plans for the future. One evening, as they relaxed on the couch, Brittany sighed contentedly. "I think we're getting the hang of this parenting thing." Ralph laughed, nodding. "Just wait till he starts walking and talking. Then we're in real trouble." Brittany smiled, leaning her head on Ralph's shoulder. "Whatever comes, we'll handle it. Together." Their life, though markedly different than before, was filled with a new kind of happiness. Willie's presence brought them closer, his milestones a shared celebration. Ralph and Brittany, once unsure about their unconventional path, now couldn't imagine their lives any other way. It was a crisp autumn morning, not unlike the day Ralph and Brittany first met, but this day was marked by tragedy. As Ralph was preparing breakfast, the phone rang. The sharp ringtone sliced through the usual morning calm, causing a sense of foreboding to settle over him as he answered. "Hello," Ralph's voice was cautious, a knot forming in his stomach. "Is this Ralph Jennings?" an unfamiliar, formal voice on the other end asked. "Yes," speaking Ralph replied, his grip tightening on the phone. "I'm calling from Mercy Hospital. There's been an accident involving Brittany Jennings. It's urgent that you come to the hospital immediately," the voice said, clinical and detached. Ralph's heart plummeted. "What kind of accident? Is she okay?" "I'm sorry, sir. I can only discuss the details in person. Please come as soon as you can." Dropping the phone, Ralph scrambled to get Willie ready and drove to the hospital, his mind racing with worry. The drive seemed endless, each red light a torturous pause in his desperate need to be there. Upon arriving, a doctor met him in the waiting room. The grim look on her face told Ralph all he needed to know before she even spoke. "Mr. Jennings, I'm Dr. Larkin. I'm so sorry, but despite our best efforts, Brittany didn't survive the injuries from the car accident." The world seemed to stop spinning for Ralph. "No, it can't be," he stammered, his voice breaking as he sank into a nearby chair. "We did everything we could, Doctor." Larkin continued gently. "I am truly sorry for your loss." Ralph barely heard her as he struggled to process the information. Tears blurred his vision, and a deep, inconsolable sorrow settled over him. He thanked the doctor mechanically, his actions numb and automatic. The days that followed were a blur of arrangements and condolences. Ralph moved through them like a ghost, feeling detached and overwhelmed. He kept himself together for Willie's sake, who was too young to understand the permanence of his mother's absence. At the funeral, Ralph stood before Brittany's friends and family, his eyes red but his voice steady. "Brittany was the light of our lives," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "She was a brilliant, loving person who made a profound impact on everyone she met. Her absence leaves a void that can never be filled, but her spirit will live on in our son Willie." As he spoke, Ralph felt the weight of his words, each one a testament to their shared life and the future they had planned. After the service, friends and family offered their condolences, sharing stories of Brittany that brought temporary smiles amidst the tears. But the hardest part came when they returned home, to the silence of the house they had shared. Ralph put Willie to bed and then sat in the living room surrounded by reminders of Brittany. He picked up a photo of the three of them, taken on their last vacation together, and allowed himself to weep. The pain was raw and unyielding, but Ralph knew he had to keep going for Brittany, for Willie, and for himself. Little did he know that the coming days would bring revelations that would shake the very foundations of the life he thought he knew. The reading of Brittany's will was set in a stark, formal lawyer's office. Ralph sat beside Brittany's lawyer, Mr. Thompson, with Willie quietly playing at his feet. The room was filled with a tense silence as Mr. Thompson prepared the documents. "As you know, Mr. Thompson began, clearing his throat. Brittany was very thorough with her planning. This will was last updated 3 months ago." Ralph nodded, bracing himself to hear the details, hoping to understand Brittany's final wishes. "Mr. Thompson continued, firstly, Brittany has left the majority of her assets to be split between Willie and her first husband, Philip." Ralph's head snapped up, a mixture of confusion and shock on his face. "Her what?" "Philip? I thought they were divorced years ago." "I'm sorry, Ralph, but according to our records, Brittany and Philip never officially divorced. He's still legally her husband." The room spun around Ralph as he tried to process the words. It felt like a betrayal, reopening the wound of her loss with a new, sharper edge. "Why would she do this? Why didn't she tell me?" Ralph muttered, more to himself than to Mr. Thompson. "I can't answer that, Ralph. But there's more, Mr. Thompson said, handing Ralph an envelope. "Brittany left this letter for you. She requested you read it after the will." With trembling hands, Ralph opened the letter, the familiar slant of Brittany's handwriting blurring through his tears. He read aloud, his voice breaking. "Dear Ralph, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and for that I'm so sorry. I never meant to leave you or our beautiful Willie. You must know that you are the love of my life, my true partner in everything. The decision not to divorce Philip was complicated. I was afraid of losing everything we had built. I couldn't face more legal battles, and I thought it would be easier to just keep things as they were. I never loved him after I met you. Please believe that. I know this might hurt you, and I hate myself for that. I love you, Ralph. I love you more than I can ever express. I wanted to protect our family, but I see now I was wrong. I hope one day you can forgive me. Forever yours, Brittany." As Ralph finished reading, tears streamed down his face. He felt a mix of anger, sorrow, and love. He looked at Willie, who was now staring up at him, sensing his father's distress. "Mummy wrote us a letter," Ralph managed to say, his voice choked. "She loved us very much, Willie. She made some mistakes, but she loved us." "Is Mummy coming back?" Willie asked, his small voice full of hope and confusion. "Nobody, she's not. But she's always in our hearts," Ralph replied, pulling Willie into his arms, holding him close. As they left the lawyer's office, Ralph felt the weight of Brittany's secrets, but also a deep sorrow for her struggles. He knew he had to find a way to forgive her, not just for Brittany or himself, but for Willie. They deserved to remember her with love, not resentment. And so Ralph's journey toward understanding and forgiveness began, one slow, painful step at a time. The days following the will reading were tumultuous for Ralph. He struggled with the knowledge of Brittany's dual life, feeling deceived yet also grieving the woman he loved deeply. Each morning he woke with a heaviness, unsure how to navigate his swirling emotions. One evening, his sister, Laura, came over to help out and noticed Ralph's despondency. She found him staring out the window while Willie played quietly with his blocks. "Ralph, talk to me. You've been out of it ever since." "Well, you know," Laura said gently, joining him at the window. Ralph sighed deeply, his voice tired. "It's everything, Laura. The will, the letter. I feel like I didn't really know her." Laura nodded, understanding his pain. "It's a lot to take in. But Brittany loved you, that much is clear from her letter. Maybe she was just really scared of losing what you two had. But to keep something like that from me? How could she think that was okay? How do I explain this to Willie when he's older?" Ralph's voice cracked with the burden of his questions. Laura placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You tell him the truth that his mum was human and made mistakes, but she loved him immensely. As for the rest, take it one day at a time, Ralph. You don't have to figure it all out now." The next few weeks were a blur of legal discussions and meetings with Philip, who was just as shocked by the revelations. They met in a small coffee shop, a neutral ground laden with tension. Philip, looking weary, spoke first. "Ralph, I had no idea about any of this. I thought she had moved on, legally and otherwise." Ralph, nursing a bitter coffee, simply nodded. "Yeah, I guess we were both fooled. I don't even know what to do with all this." "Me?" Neither Philip agreed. "I'm sorry for what it's worth. I never wanted any part in hurting you or Willie." There was an awkward silence, filled only by the clinking of cups and the distant murmur of other customers. "Look, about the will. I want to make sure Willie is taken care of," Philip finally said, breaking the silence. "He deserves that much." Ralph looked up, surprised. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't need Brittany's money. I'll sign whatever needs to be signed to make sure it goes to Willie," Philip declared, his tone resolute. Ralph felt a reluctant gratitude mingling with his confusion. "Thanks, Philip. That means a lot, really." With each passing day, Ralph worked on forgiving Brittany. He spent long hours talking with friends and family, reading old letters from Brittany and watching videos of them together. Slowly, the sharp edges of betrayal softened, tempered by the memories of her love and laughter. One night, as Ralph tucked Willie into bed, his son asked, "Daddy, do you still love Mummy?" Ralph took a deep breath, brushing back Willie's hair. "Yes, buddy, I do, I always will. Your mum made some big mistakes, but she loved us more than anything. We have to remember the good times, okay?" "Okay, Daddy," Willie murmured, yawning and snuggling into his pillow. As Ralph turned out the light, he realized that forgiveness was not a destination but a journey. He had taken the first few steps on a long road, guided by the love for his son and the memories of Brittany that, despite everything, still brought him solace. Several months had passed since the revelations about Brittany's life came to light. Ralph had spent countless hours reflecting on his relationship with Brittany, grappling with the remnants of betrayal, yet guided by a newfound understanding of her fears and flaws. One afternoon, Ralph took Willie to the park, watching him play in the autumn leaves. The cool breeze and laughter of children around seemed to bring a sense of normalcy and peace. As Willie ran back to him with a big smile, Ralph felt a twinge of happiness mixed with sorrow. "Look, Daddy. I made a big leaf pile," Willie exclaimed, his eyes bright with excitement. "That's great, buddy. Why don't we jump in it together?" Ralph suggested, and for a moment he forgot the pain as they played together, leaves crunching underfoot. Afterwards, sitting on a bench while Willie played nearby, Ralph's friend Mike joined him, having been a source of support through the toughest times. "How you holding up?" Man Mike asked, handing Ralph a coffee. Ralph took a sip, his gaze following Willie. "Better, actually. It's been hard, but I'm finding my way through it." Mike nodded. "It's good to hear, Ralph, and it's okay that it's not all figured out yet." "Yeah," Ralph agreed. "I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness. Not for her sake, but for mine and Willie's. Hanging on to anger. It doesn't help us move forward. Sounds like you're really working through it. It's a tough road, but you're doing what's best for you and the little guy, Mike said, gesturing towards Willie. Ralph smiled. It is tough, but I realized something important. Forgiving Brittany doesn't mean forgetting or excusing what she did. It means freeing myself from the bitterness. It means I can tell Willie about his mum without the anger. That's a strong place to be, Ralph. Takes a lot to get there, Mike commented, looking impressed. I had a lot of help, Ralph admitted. And Willie, he deserves a dad who can show him how to face tough stuff with his head held high. Their conversation shifted to lighter topics, but the weight in Ralph's chest felt a little lighter. Days turned into weeks, and Ralph found himself more at peace with the past. He started to write in a journal, a suggestion from a counsellor, which helped him articulate and process his feelings further. One evening, as he wrote about a particularly happy memory of Brittany, he realised he was smiling. Ralph had also started to meet other single parents, forming a small support group where they shared their struggles and victories. It was during one of these meetings that he expressed how far he had come. You know, a few months ago I couldn't imagine ever feeling okay again, Ralph shared with the group, who listened intently. But here I am, not just surviving but finding moments of genuine happiness. It's possible. Healing is possible. Thanks for sharing that, Ralph. It gives hope to all of us, one of the parents responded, and nods of agreement echoed around the room. As the meeting ended, Ralph felt a sense of community and strength. He was not alone in his journey, and the shared experiences reinforced his resolve to continue healing. That night, as he put Willie to bed, Ralph told him, "Mummy loved you so much, and so do I. We're going to be okay, you and me." "Okay, Daddy," Willie murmured, his young voice filled with trust. As Ralph kissed his son goodnight, he knew that healing was not just about overcoming the past, but also about building a future where forgiveness paved the way for new beginnings. With each day, he felt more equipped to offer Willie a life filled with love and stability, standing as a testament to the power of forgiveness. A year had passed since Brittany's untimely death, and Ralph found himself reflecting on the journey he and Willie had undertaken. It was early evening and they were at the beach, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. Willie, now a little older and more aware of his mother's absence, sat beside his father, building sandcastles. "Daddy, did Mummy like the beach?" Willie asked, his small hands patting the sand. Ralph smiled, remembering the many times he and Brittany had visited this very spot. "She loved it, buddy. She always said the ocean made her feel free." Willie looked thoughtful, then smiled. "I feel free too, Daddy." Ralph ruffled his son's hair, his heart swelling with love. "That's great, Willie. Mummy would have loved to see this." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ralph turned his thoughts to the personal growth he had experienced. Forgiveness had not come easily, and there were days when the pain seemed too much to bear. But he had learned that resilience wasn't about avoiding the pain, it was about facing it head-on and finding a way through it. Later that night, after Willie was asleep, Ralph sat on his porch, a journal in his lap. He had taken to writing not just to cope with his grief but to document his thoughts and feelings for Willie to read when he was older. Tonight, he wrote about resilience. "Dear Willie," he began, his pen moving steadily over the page. "Today at the beach, you asked about your mum. It made me think about the journey we've been on, the pain, the healing, and the love that remains. I want you to know that life will test us, sometimes in ways we can't imagine. But no matter what, we can overcome. We do it by holding on to love, by forgiving, and by never losing hope." Ralph paused, looking up at the stars twinkling above. He felt a deep connection to the universe, to Brittany, and to the future he was building for his son. The next day, Ralph met with a group of fellow single parents for coffee. As they shared their stories, Ralph found himself offering advice and encouragement, something he couldn't have imagined doing a year ago. "You know, it's okay to feel overwhelmed sometimes," Ralph told a new member of the group. "What matters is that you keep going. You'll find strength you didn't know you had, and you won't be alone. We're here for you." Hearing his own words, Ralph realized how far he had come. He wasn't just surviving, he was thriving, and he was helping others do the same. Back home, as he tucked Willie into bed, Ralph felt a sense of peace. "Good night, Willie. Dream of the beach, okay?" "Okay, Daddy." "I love you," Willie murmured, his eyelids fluttering closed. "I love you too." More than anything, Ralph whispered, turning out the light. As he walked back to his own room, Ralph felt the weight of the past year's events, but also the promise of the future. In his heart, he carried the resilience and love that Brittany had left behind, the enduring strength of a parent's love that not only survived the deepest loss, but also transformed it into something beautiful. He knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he and Willie would face them together, with hearts resilient and hopeful. Let us know in the comments how this story has inspired you, or share your own experiences of overcoming adversity. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heart-touching stories like this one. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest uploads. Your journey through the complexities of the human heart starts now. Remember, your story isn't over yet. It's just a new chapter beginning. Stay strong, stay inspired.